Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to guide you through today's topic. We're going to be looking at a really fascinating intersection today. The relationship between these massive, globally recognized youth movements, the Boy Scouts and Girl Guides, and the teachings of the Catholic Church. Right off the bat, there's a really simple question at the absolute heart of today's Explainer. Are the Scouts and Guides Catholic? This is the exact tension that so many Catholic parents, youth group leaders, and educators are grappling with right now. You've got these incredible organizations with deep historical roots and super admirable goals, but how do they actually align with a specific faith tradition? Okay, let's dive into this. We are talking about an enormous cultural footprint here. Millions of young people have been shaped worldwide by these programs. I mean, we all recognize the iconic uniforms, the weekend camping trips, that deep emphasis on community service. They're undeniably some of the most recognizable youth movements in human history. But to really grasp how they fit into a religious context, we first have to understand where they started. So, tracing the origins back to 1907, a British Army officer named Lord Robert Baden-Powell actually drew on his military experience to run the very first experimental scout camp. This was on Brownsea Island in England. His overarching goal? To develop courage, discipline, and responsibility in youth. Literally the very next year, in 1908, he published Scouting for Boys, which essentially became the foundation of the entire worldwide movement. And as you might guess, as the movement rapidly grew, girls naturally wanted to be a part of the adventure too. This led to the creation of the Girl Guides in the subsequent years, guided initially by Robert's sister Agnes and later on by his wife Olave. Honestly, what is truly fascinating here is the sheer breadth of their mission. The Scouts and Guides are fundamentally about holistic youth development. We're talking about character formation, leadership training, community service, outdoor education, teamwork, discipline, practical life skills, and a really deep respect for others. The motto isn't just about producing kids who are incredibly good at setting up tents in the dark. It's about forming responsible citizens who make a positive, tangible contribution to society as adults. And that brings us right back to our burning question. We totally see the good they do, we see the holistic development, but structurally, officially, are the Boy Scouts and Girl Guides Catholic organizations? Well, the direct answer, right from the source material, is no, they are not Catholic organizations. They were not founded by the Catholic Church. In fact, these are secular or broadly interfaith youth movements. They generally welcome members from various Christian traditions and, depending on the country you're in, people from completely different religious backgrounds entirely. Naturally, that leads us directly to the very next question that pops up for Catholic families looking at these local community programs. Well, if they aren't officially Catholic, can Catholics actually join them? And the answer is a resounding yes. The Catholic Church has generally supported Scouting where its activities align with Catholic teaching. But, and I really want you to pay close attention to this next part, that yes comes with some very specific boundaries and caveats. So, the crucial point is this. Catholics can totally participate, provided these specific conditions are met. First, nothing in the local group can contradict the Catholic faith. Second, moral teaching must be respected. Third, going on a weekend camping trip absolutely cannot interfere with Sunday Mass or sacramental life. And fourth, parents must remain highly attentive to the specific values being promoted by their local chapter. Because, policies can differ wildly from country to country or even town to town, so local discernment by parents is absolutely vital. All right, let's move to part one, the Venn diagram of virtues. This is where Scouting and faith beautifully harmonize. You see, despite the need for parental discernment, the Church has long recognized the immense value of authentic Scouting when it comes to forming strong moral character. There is actually a massive amount of overlap between the two. Just listen to these shared virtues: honesty and responsibility, discipline and teamwork, service to others, respect for authority, care for creation, generosity, perseverance, and leadership rooted in integrity. The synergy here is really quite stunning. Authentic Scouting encourages these exact virtues, which, when lived out correctly, perfectly complement the moral formation that starts at home in the family and continues in the church pews. However, we do have to establish a clear hierarchy for these frameworks. With all these amazing shared virtues, a totally logical boundary question pops up. Does Scouting replace Catholic formation? Like, if a child is learning all this great stuff in the woods and in their community, is that enough on its own? The source material answers this incredibly firmly. Absolutely not. No way.
Scouting is a fantastic, highly valuable complement to a young person's upbringing, but it is never, ever a substitute for their core religious foundation. When we compare the two directly, the distinction becomes crystal clear. On the earthly side of things, scouting provides practical action, community service, discipline, and teamwork. It literally helps put virtues into practice. But on the spiritual side, we have what Catholic formation provides, the irreplaceable spiritual anchors. We're talking about the Holy Mass, the sacraments, catechesis, family life, and Catholic education. You simply need those spiritual anchors to give ultimate meaning to the earthly actions.
And honestly, there's a quote that brilliantly illustrates this exact relationship. It says, "A scout may learn leadership in the camp, but he learns the fullness of the Christian life through Christ and his church." It's just this perfect mini narrative that puts the whole thing into perspective. The camp provides the canvas for leadership for sure, but the church provides the complete, finished picture of what a meaningful Christian life truly is. Which brings us to part 2, integrated Catholic scouting, combining traditional principles with faith. This leads to a fascinating solution that bridges both of these worlds flawlessly. Because the church values youth formation so highly, many Catholic schools, parishes, and dioceses officially sponsor their very own integrated scout groups. Let's look at how this builds a complete experience. Catholic Scout associations seamlessly integrate the traditional, time-tested principles of scouting with deep spiritual practices. We are talking about weaving in Catholic prayer, ensuring participation in the sacraments during trips, providing guided spiritual formation, and making sure the community service is directly inspired by the gospel. The exact names and structures of these groups will definitely vary depending on what country you live in, but they do an amazing job of uniting these two worlds. Because, at the end of the day, whether a child joins the Scouts, the Guides, or any other youth organization, the ultimate goal isn't just earning a bunch of badges, or surviving a spectacularly rainy camping trip, or learning to tie a perfect knot. The ultimate goal is to become a faithful Christian and ultimately a saint. Every single earthly activity we do should be a stepping stone to becoming a better disciple. It creates such a powerful equation: discipline plus charity, leadership plus humility, service plus faith. When the practical traits learned in scouting are united with these theological virtues, that is when the real transformation happens. That's when young people become way more than just responsible citizens. They become truly joyful witnesses of their faith in the modern world. It really is an unbelievable framework for youth development when it's approached with intention and clear boundaries. And now, I want to turn this over to you, our focused learner. Were you a Boy Scout or a Girl Guide? What specific lessons from the Scout movement have helped you grow in your character or perhaps even in your Catholic faith? We would absolutely love to hear from you, so please share your respectful experiences down in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.